Good afternoon, my friends. How are all my peeps today? I'm just going to make a video to kind of touch base with my subscribers and say hello to everyone. Run over a couple of ideas and a couple controversial topics that I'm not allowed to discuss here. And a little bit of my frustration about current issues within the media, censorships, social media, etc. First, I wanted to just start by saying thank you to my subscribers who, through the years, have remained with me and through thick and thin. You know, I've gone through many phases. I've had stages where I'm obviously frustrated with my, based on the discussions that I have. Times when maybe I am an idealist, when I think everything's going really well. And this really just comes down to my subjectivity about, how I feel about life in the current, at the current time. And right now I'm a bit ambivalent, for lack of a better term, about the future of everything. Not just the world, but myself, my personal choices and decisions. Before I forget, I wanted to say thank you to a couple subscribers for sending me a couple gifts. I did have a subscriber who got mad at me because I didn't thank him soon enough for sending me an Indian head penny last month. But I wanted to say thank you if you're out there, Tobaccorowe. And I do appreciate it. And as well to Stephen, who recently sent me a bunch of these bears, Grateful Dead bears. And I mentioned that before. But just the other day, Kendra sent me these woofers. And this was the coolest thing. They're dog treats. And inside the box, there's two boxes, and they have different dog bones. They're like frosted dog bones. And it's the cutest little thing. And they're all packaged up. These little things like Woof Light, like a little beer-looking thing. And I made a video opening it with Lucy because I wanted to make a video as a thank you to show her eating them. And I wanted to put it together with us eating some, but she's been really weird the last couple days, and I just haven't had a chance to really make it. So I just wanted to say thank you in advance. And she as well sent me this Dracula soil, and I thought this was the coolest thing. It's a little vial of soil that was collected at the base of one of these haunts, as they would call it, of this count. And there's a story behind it, but I just wanted to say thank you. I love little things like that, and it'll definitely go on my shelf. So thank you, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate all my patrons as well. I don't mention that often enough. I don't expect to make a living off of talking online, but it's nice to be able to at least have a few contributions to help, buy new SD cards, things like that. Damn, I need a new computer because I miss being able to edit my videos. I really do. My computer's just like a little, it's just a little notebook. So it's just got a really tiny hard drive in it that can't process videos. So anyhow, there's a few things that I really wanted to discuss, as I said. One of them has to do with this current situation we've been in for the last year or so, which we all know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not allowed to use certain words on YouTube any longer. There are certain terms that will get my channel deleted, that will give me a strike. There's just certain topics that I am not allowed to even talk about. And sure, I could work around the system, but you know what I'm talking about when I talk about this issue, and when I talk about the possibility of what's coming out now, that there's a likelihood that there was a leak from a laboratory somewhere. Let's just leave it at that. And from the beginning, a lot of us have been watching this. There's a very obvious connection there. But the media has continuously tried to cover up and discredit anyone as a conspiracy theorist. Now look, I've accused certain belief systems as, I use that term, and it's like more of a pejorative. I probably should not use that term because it has such a negative connotation, conspiracy theory. The fact is, all it means is that a few people got together and they're hiding some truth. I mean, is it really that hard to believe? They happen all the time, right? Anyhow, people have a right to be angry if they're lied to, and we're constantly lied to. So I decided I'm going to when I make my podcast today, that's what I'm going to be discussing. So if anyone wants to hear some of those more controversial topics, you can check out the podcast, and the link I think is in the description. I haven't uploaded it or created it yet, that particular one. So we have a right to be pissed. You know, as I said, I've gone through many phases in my life. I remember when I went through the kind of love and light phase where, you know, I started learning about these practices where it said, well, for example, somebody said, when I'm sitting in my car, I'm always putting out good thoughts to the universe, and I mellow out, drive slow, I don't get angry at people. I'm like, that's good advice, you know. But when somebody cuts me off, I'm still going to honk at them. I mean, I have very little patience for what I consider to be people slighting other people or harm to other people. I can't let that shit go. Somebody's got to stand up for themselves and other people. And so I've really been mulling this over in my head the last couple days, this idea of righteous anger, or the idea that everyone else is telling us how we should and shouldn't live. All these ideas about what to believe, what to think is true, religious-wise. It's just so absurd to me that people believe what others tell them is true about religion or beliefs. From what I've learned in my life, nobody knows a goddamn thing, no pun intended, about what's really going on out there. And the idea that we should try to obscure our emotions or, you know, hide certain parts of ourselves that come naturally, that are things that we're all born with, inherent, I call BS on it. And I believe that this is kind of partially influenced by my, you know, my interest in nihilism as a, not an end game, but a launching point, if you will. You might think of nihilism as a clean slate to decide what really matters, instead of, well, people tell me I should love this person or like these people or accept this or accept that, but I don't. What's wrong with me? You know what I mean? Then you start to look deeper and you think, well, maybe it's not me, but maybe it is. And this is the ever-present search for meaning within an individual's life. You're constantly reassessing things that you thought were true at one time to see if you still feel that way. So I just thought of something the other day. There are a lot of secrets out there. Choose wisely. And that goes down to the old saying that you can't unsee something. You can't unlearn something once you've learned it. They've said that many of the people that are very highly intelligent philosophers and scientists through history have had issues with depression, because that's also at the root of the idea that ignorance is bliss. We know this isn't true. Being ignorant is not blissful. The meaning of that is obviously that if you don't think too much about the bigger problems of the world, you can live in your own little world. And generally, things are all right most of the time. Even though some people would argue that's not true, that the default mode of being a human is misery. And then we get into antinatalism and extreme nihilism, that I won't go down that road. Here we are. We have what they call the will to live. I think it was Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer, if I'm not mistaken, who spoke of the will to live. It's a curiosity that until you study your own consciousness, you can't even realize you have. Why do we have a will to live? Many people can take their own lives. Some may think, well, it's because their life has become so hard, so difficult. There are many reasons. My belief is that any time a person does something like that, it is a mental illness, because some of the most poor and downtrodden people in the world would never do that. Whereas a person might just lose their job and decide it's worth it to end it all just because they lost a job. There's something deeper going on there. It's a psychological conditioning, and I don't think that it's natural. My point and my question here being is, why do we push on? What is it about humans that we have this drive to not just succeed but thrive in this world? It's pretty fascinating stuff. All animals do. Plants want to live. When I was growing up, for example, learning about plants and animals, I had this idea of how nature operated in my mind as a child. Okay, the plants, the trees, they're in the dirt. They pick up nutrients. Never could I have imagined that the more I learned about the science of nature, the more amazing it becomes. In other words, having the answers doesn't ruin the mystery. A lot of people dismiss scientific discoveries because it counteracts perhaps what they want to believe religiously or otherwise. And sometimes it's, the science is wrong as well. But sometimes that opens up a door to it even being more amazing. I think that all humans should be armed with all the truth that's available. There should never be hidden secrets. They should not even be a thing. Hiding ideas or, things that can better each other's lives in this short time we have on this planet. There are no real geniuses, if you want to think of people who invent and create new amazing things for society. As I mentioned in my podcast about where I mentioned Elon Musk the other day, I don't like the guy. He's not really an innovator to me. He's just a guy who capitalizes on others' innovations. But this is the history of inventions. People use others' ideas, like everything that goes into a cell phone. Did Steve Jobs invent that? Of course not. All the ideas were already there. It's just a matter of putting them together. But what I'm referring to here are the individuals who created all these different components, who did it for the better, sometimes, of humanity. People who had created medicines who just gave them away, even though they were recommended to get a patent on them and to protect their rights. They said, why? This is a discovery that will better people's lives. Why would I want to make money off of it? It's a very rare type of person in today's world. I strive to be one of those people. I would never let money determine or corrupt my values or morals. It's just one of those things. Even though I let go of everything society tells me, there's still that part of me that knows that truth and honesty, that's not about what society tells me to do. It's about what I feel in my heart is right. But I guess there's kind of a fine line between what we feel in our hearts and what we've learned. And, yeah. But we all own everything, was my point. We all have a stake in everything. One of your grandparents or great-grandparents probably contributed in the invention of something that we use today, somehow. Perhaps they were just a worker on an assembly line when it was needed. But everybody contributed to create what we have today. And the idea that we're not allowed to all share in it because of intellectual property and protecting patent rights, it's sad. I even watched a show the other day about how logos have become oversimplified, and it frustrates people, and they were saying, why would it matter whether a logo is simple or not? Well, it's because basically everyone's being treated like children now by all the large corporations. They make these very simplified logos using this old generic, types of commercials, and people are just like, when it reminds me of Idiocracy, moving into Mountain Dew sponsoring the presidency. It's crazy. There was a point a few years ago where I wondered where we were going to go as a society. Are we gonna like actually move into an quote enlightened state, or are we just going to further decrease our knowledge base, further decrease our ability to gather information properly by skewing the truth, making people just give up on trying to find anything? Give them a TV show and a couple reality shows, and people are good to go. It's sad because we have things like YouTube, which I'm using right now, which doesn't care at all about its creators at all, that created YouTube, that made YouTube what it is. Anybody who's used YouTube since, back in the early 2000s knows that it was an amazing place to share wild videos. You might get something in your recommended list that was just so obscure. But usually, like let's say if you had autoplay on, a video from the same person you were watching would come on next. Oh, one of their other videos. Now the algorithms will throw on anything that has a commercial or somebody who's selling you a product. And it really does feel plastic. We're living in a plastic society. And it's so hard to be one of the people who doesn't want to compromise your integrity. I have no intention of answering these people who email me, for example, saying, oh, if you promote our product, we'll give you this much money if you put a sponsored ad on your channel. I'm like, but I don't use that product. I don't even know if it's a good product. It comes down to influencing, influencers, that kind of thing. It's a disgusting, kind of like when when something beautiful unfolds, there can always be something wrong with it. I'm trying to think of a good metaphor. I really can't. It's just a disease. It's a cancer. Sponsorships of products, things like that. There's more than enough products. We have more than enough clothing lines. We have more than enough food choices. Really, it's the big marketing companies that make the most money, and I've never been a fan of commercials. I mean, I got rid of cable, a decade. I think it was a decade ago at least. I hated it up to that point. It was just something we had. But commercials to me were always just wow. Look at all these drug commercials. Look at all these car insurance commercials, and now artificial intelligence is kind of running the show with a lot of that. I just don't know what to think. I guess I'm going to leave it at that. And, I appreciate y'all coming along, listening to what I have to say for what it's worth. And so feel free to join me on the podcast later. I'll talk a little bit about my feelings on the Middle East, as well as what's going on with this epidemic situation. But it's just unfortunate that I can't talk about it here. And I think about how many other people aren't allowed to say what they mean and how they really feel. Censorship is up. Thanks for coming along. Talk to y'all later.